All right, welcome everybody to the second week of the off-season episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich, here with my partner, Sean Williams, the man about town, the musician, the bass player, the man, the legend. Sean is we were just talking about this off the air. Sean is apparently going to be playing in the band. Did I understand this correctly? For the first time in 30 years?
Yeah, actually a little over 30, as a bass player. Now, I did, I think the last time I was on stage was 28 years ago. Uh, those days kind of run together this time, right about now. But yeah, Friday night I auditioned for a band named Kunas Carnival. And
Okay, then.
yeah, well, uh, we're more than music. We are a spectacle. I'll put it that way. Uh, yeah, I'm doing bass and some vocals with them. And for anybody that is in Northeast Louisiana or would like to come to Northeast Louisiana next Saturday night at the AmVets on Armand Street in Monroe, Louisiana, there is going to be a benefit for a fellow musician to help cover his medical expenses. He's dealing with a really bad illness, and I'm not certain on the cover or anything like that. I'll as soon as I see something, I'll keep it posted. But I want to invite everyone to go to Facebook and go to Kunas Carnival. We have a Facebook page and everything, and you guys have been so great to support me through Under the Dome, and I invite you, if you like rock and roll, if you like music, period. Let's see. I think earlier this evening when we practiced, we played Dirty White Boy and Hair of the Dog, and then we played Electric Avenue and I Will Survive, and
Electric Avenue.
yeah, and Relax. Let's see what else.
So let me get this straight. You went from Nazareth to Frankie Goes to Hollywood?
Yeah, man, seamlessly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's all about entertaining, man. It's and I'm playing with two really good musicians that I think a lot of, Lane Clark and Cedric Crane. And I think there could be some big stuff on the horizon for us. I'm really looking forward to doing this. It's something that was a major part of my life so many years ago, and for me to suddenly have the opportunity to be a part of something like that again, it means a lot to me. And if you guys come and see us play, you will be entertained. I guarantee you that.
Okay. I got a vision now. First, I was just picturing you on the stage. How do you play the bass for Frankie Goes to Hollywood? I mean, that's a Moog player, isn't it? That really,
Yeah.
I mean, you just follow that same line.
Yeah, there's several songs that the bass is especially the dance type stuff that we
Mm-hmm.
play. The
Mm-hmm.
bass is kind of secondary, because if you go back and you listen to the original recordings, there was quite a bit of it that wasn't actually bass anyway. It was all synth,
Right.
and we don't, how do I say this? We don't like try to capture these songs as Gloria Gaynor or Eddie Grant or Nazareth did them. We put our own little twisted spin on it, but it's a lot of
Okay.
fun.
Well, and here we go about music again. But
It's the off
when I
season,
was,
man.
yeah, I know, you got to fill up this hour somehow. But there was a band called the Top Cats here in Louisiana, in New Orleans, that I go to. I go to see play a lot, and I saw them. God, I'm dating myself now. I saw them back in 1987 in Lafayette, Louisiana, at a bar called Poets. And that was about the time, it might have been 88. That was about the time Tone Loc was really popular with his Wild Thing song. Well, for those who don't know, rap songs, especially in the 80s, used to sample a lot. So, what are you laughing about? It's true.
You trying to describe the theory behind rap music? This is priceless.
No,
Carry on. Carry on.
I'm
You're doing great.
No,
You're doing
this
great.
is part of the story. So anyway, they're playing. You listen to Wild Thing, and I'm going to tell you another story that reminds me of another song. But anyway, you hear Wild Thing, and you hear that guitar sound, and not the Trog's Wild Thing, but Tone Loc's Wild Thing, and that drum roll, dun 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 dun. That little drum roll. Well, that's Jamie's Crying from Van Halen, Van Halen's first album. Yeah,
thank you.
So midway through Wild Thing, the drummer's playing it, and the drummer's singing it, and he says, "Hey, you guys know where this song comes from, right?" And he did the whole drum roll, dun 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 dun, and all of a sudden they kicked into Jamie's Crying, which is just, it was great. I mean, it was what I always loved about those things. It's like listening to Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby, and you're really hearing Under Pressure from Queen. So anyway, this is another story, but I'm in a bar one night and they're playing some god-awful rap song. I don't even know what the hell it was. But in the middle of the song, or I shouldn't say in the middle of the song, in the rhythm of the song, you can hear this one chord repeated over and over again. And it was dun dun dun. Just, I have no musical skills whatsoever, but it's just that one set of chords played over and over again. And it was driving me crazy. I knew it. And, I'm drinking, so the mental faculty is not exactly in high gear. But I'm going, this is driving me crazy. I know this. I know this from something. It's the little piano sound from Boogie On Reggae Woman from Stevie Wonder. That dun, dun, dun. If you know the song Boogie On Reggae Woman, you'll know what I'm talking about. Anyway, just that little bit, it's kind of playing Name That Tune, identify this song in one note or two notes or a chord or whatever. That's what it was doing to me while I was in the bar. So I'm a fun person to sit next to playing music trivia as I'm drinking. So that's my music stories. I don't play music. The only music I play is through a turntable or a phone or whatever. So
it's funny that you mentioned them doing Wild Thing and then transitioning over into Jamie's Crying. We're working on this one thing earlier tonight that it's kind of a medley of crazy songs, and we're just fooling around, playing.
So y'all start with Patsy Cline and go straight to Ozzy Osbourne, or how does this go?
Actually, it's the other way around. The da 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 da. And the drummer's sitting back there going, crazy.
Oh, God. Oh, Lord.
But see, the guys that I'm playing with are accomplished enough, and those two guys have been playing together for, maybe 30, 35 years. So it's all about having fun and entertaining people. And when you can do something like that and bring like two things together. And by the way, you mentioned Tone Loc. We do Funky Cold Medina as well. And there's some songs on there that I'm playing that I've never heard. Pumped Up Kicks, I think was the name of it.
If it came after 1989, I probably don't know it.
Well, that's the way that I am too.
Yeah. Especially if it's like pop music from 1989 on forward. I might know a couple, but for the most part, 85, 89 to 1939, I'm pretty good. I can name most of those songs. That's about my range.
I glanced over the song list that they gave me, and one of the songs on our song list that we've yet to actually work on was Folsom Prison Blues too. So
I hear a train a coming,
rolling down the track. Anyway, let me pay the bills real quick.
Yeah, do that. And
we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. This is actually a football podcast. But like I said, you guys have been so awesome over the past 2+ years to show your support for just about anything that we've thrown in front of you, and this is something that is really kind of cool for me. And if you guys could support it, that would be awesome. But we want to invite you guys to subscribe to our show on iTunes and on YouTube. And we want to thank Fan First Productions for sponsoring our show. And hey, I'm actually going in just a little while to see about welcoming our second sponsor, but that's all I can say about it yet. It's the off season, so probably the biggest storyline to come out of New Orleans as of late is let me see, David Onyemata.
Yeah.
He's an idiot. I saw that press release, and the first thing that crossed through my mind was, "Oh my God, this is Junior Galette all over again."
I don't think that's the case. I think it's just you're gonna hate hearing this, but I'm coming to realize this. We're of a different generation than the current players in the NFL, and it's been 20-something years now of marijuana doesn't hurt you. Marijuana can help you. It can cure this. It can help you with this. Relieves pain. It does all these things. And quite honestly, these players come from a generation that feels that way, so they really don't see anything wrong with it. And that's why you see this movement to legalize it. And it is what it is. It's dumb that he lets himself get caught with stuff like that, but he's of that generation where it's almost like getting caught with a beer, in your dorm room.
Yeah.
That's how they view it. Oh, I had a beer in my dorm room. I'm not falling down drunk. I just have a beer occasionally. And that's just how they see it. We grew up in a generation where, it was reefer madness still. And it's hard to – it's dumb for him because you risk so much because you are a player. But for them, they just don't see it that way, and it's a battle we're going to have.
I can see the rationale, and we know I'm not condoning or condemning anything here. That's not me. That's not my platform. And anyone that's followed us a while can remember we had a guest on, Kyle Turley, our first major guest that we had on this podcast, and he is a very, very outspoken advocate for cannabis in treating injuries in the NFL rather than treating them pharmaceutically. I realize that we know way more now about marijuana than we did 20 years ago, like when you and I were in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And probably, if the truth be told, the stigma that surrounds it is much, much worse than the actual danger of it. But, the one thing that these guys have to realize is, for example, you take a player in Denver or Seattle, places where marijuana is legal. Okay, that's all good and fine. You still are employed by a company that does not allow it.
Right.
I don't care about all the medicinal properties. I don't care about all that window dressing that distracts from the fact of the matter being, it's against the damn law. It's against the rules. And when you break the rules, you run the risk of being caught and subsequently punished. And a player like Onyemata, coming off the season that he had this year, you're putting this team in a hole when you choose to be selfish. Now, I don't know all the. I will say that I don't know all the details surrounding it, all the wherefores and how major or minor it is. I will say that it's a black eye on this team for the off season at this point. Now, the results of everything are going to be pending with that moving forward. Me personally, to each their own. I don't judge. You want to puff pass. That's completely up to you. You know your situation. You know your life way better than I do. Don't do anything that you can't be responsible and answer for, I guess. But another thing I wanted to ask you about, and I know that you have the list handy. Contract situations.
Mm-hmm.
There are two that leap immediately to mind when it comes to the New Orleans Saints and where they stand on this roster and the possibility of having to change some faces in some places. The two that spring immediately to mind, which we've talked about one already, Mark Ingram. The other is Will Lutz, the kicker. Is there anyone else besides those two? I'm talking about like our major guys that figure into the mix that we might possibly be looking at having to cut ties with or make a decision on. Let me put it that way: make a decision on.
Well, you lost. Tyler Davidson is an unrestricted free agent because this is the end of his rookie contract. So that's one. And talking about Onyemata and his issues, you only have Tyler. Only have Stallworth as your as really your defensive lineman that's healthy, that's on the roster, because you have to watch. I mean, let me just back up here. First off, I don't think Onyemata doesn't get suspended or anything like this. It's a misdemeanor now in Jefferson Parish and in Louisiana to be caught with marijuana. As long as you're not selling or anything like that, you just have simple possession. So it's not like he got arrested. It's not like he has a record. Not like anything. He's going to go to the commissioner that is any kind of legal trouble. He's paying a fine and he's done with it. It's like a speeding ticket. Okay. The only thing that could happen to him, I think, that will be negative is that he will be subjected to more random drug tests, or so-called random drug tests. So, the Onyemata situation, the Sheldon Rankin situation with the injury, Davison now becomes a pretty big priority to bring him back. And Alex Okafor, because he hit certain, the Saints kind of bought out certain, I think it was a sack total, certain incentives in his contract voided out. So, you don't have, Okafor is a free agent again. So you don't have that depth, because I think this year is the year they're going to try and make Davenport the starter. You don't have that depth on that one side. So, those are two important people that pop out in my head. Now, the Saints have made some moves. They already signed 4 of the 5 exclusive right free agent players they had. Zach Wood, I believe, is one of them. Vince Beagle, who is an inside linebacker, who I don't even remember him. I think he must have been injured all year. I do not remember seeing him on the field at all. Cameron Todd, Tom, and Justin Hardy have all been, I think, tendered or signed. Or
yes,
whatever.
tendered.
Yes.
That happened yesterday.
So, they locked those guys up. Name players that are free agents other than Ingram and Will Lutz: Ken Crawley, Tommy Lee Lewis, Manti Te'o, Craig Robertson, Chris Banjo, Jamon Bushrod, P.J. Williams, Teddy Bridgewater, some guys we might have forgot about, like Michael Human Nui. I think I just did I really butcher his name?
Michael Humanawanui.
There we go. Thank you. Dez Bryant, he's a free agent. Josh Laribus, who was on injury reserve all season. So, there's a few. But those guys I just mentioned, they're not critical. I mean, if you lose a Ken Crawley or a Tommy Lee Lewis or a Craig, I don't really want to lose Craig Robertson because I really like him. Jamon Bushrod, Josh Laribus, those are guys that you can replace. P.J. Williams, I think, is fairly important just to compete for that nickel job because Patrick Robertson is coming back from his injury, but P.J. Williams really improved playing exclusively the nickel position, especially once Eli Apple came on board. So I would hate to lose him. But,
yeah,
so they got some decisions to make.
It's not, and we've talked about this extensively over the past several weeks. I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer by any stretch of the imagination, but Saints fans need to come to the realization that over the course of the next 3 seasons, there's going to be some changes that come along. You put together a roster like the Saints have right now, and that has a shelf life of about 3 to 4 seasons. The draft class of a year ago, the Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Marshawn Lattimore,
26 and 2017, those two draft classes.
Yeah, you're going to have about 4 or 5 years with those guys, and if you don't have the money to lock those guys into major deals, and this is something that you and I have talked a lot about. You look at the play that Michael Thomas has exhibited on the field, we're realistically talking about an Antonio Brown type salary for this guy. Because over the past year, I have absolutely no reservation whatsoever in saying that Michael Thomas was the best wide receiver in the game. And he's not just doing that this season. He's doing that consistently. He's done it for 3 years in a row. And if he wants to, he's going to be in a very advantageous position where if he so chooses, he's going to be able to gouge anybody that wants to throw money at him. And the founder of the feast, Drew Brees, he's going to be playing on the last year of his deal this year.
And he's got a $33 million cap hit this year.
Yeah. So there's going to be some major in the course of the next 2 to 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even acknowledge the possibility of changes in the coaching staff. Because the more success that the Saints have, Aaron Glenn, defensive coordinator.
Dennis Allen.
All these guys, success breeds success. So the more success that this team has, those guys are going to get their opportunities to be the next man up. So, we need to enjoy this while we can because success is fleeting in this business.
Yeah. That's what Sean Payton had said in his final press conference of the season was that, the hardest part is this the last time that team will be together. no matter what happens, there will be changes. There will be players that are going. There will be players that come in. And this team was a special team. So, this will be the last time that team is together. And yeah, I mean, we talked about this last week. I felt like the way Drew Brees reacted Super Bowl week and the way he talked about that final game against the Rams, in many ways, it seems more and more that, he was planning on retiring. And now he's looking at, I got to make one more run because I'm not going out like this. And that kind of screws up some of the things I think the Saints were planning on doing this offseason. Some of the issues they have to address this offseason. I mean, we need another receiver. We need at least a possession receiver as well. So we need a tight end because Josh Hill right now is the only tight end we really have on the roster that has any sort of NFL experience. I know they have Griffin and Arnold, but I'm talking about legitimate, NFL caliber tight end. Those two guys have a lot of work they have to do to become NFL level players. So you've got holes you have to address, and you're kind of squeezed on the salary cap because, Michael Thomas is due a big payday. Alvin Kamara is going to be due a big payday as well because he's on a 4-year deal, not a 5-year deal, because he was a third-round pick. So, there are some decisions they're going to have to make, and it's going to be very tough. I feel a little bit better than I felt this time a week ago, because I think there are things they're going to be able to do with the salary cap to create some room to get those kind of players in there. And, Jeff Ireland didn't leave. So, Jeff Ireland can still find some draft gems late in the draft. I mean, people make fun of, or I shouldn't say make fun of, but people point out that the Saints cut so many players from the bottom half of the draft. But if you look at almost all those players found a spot on someone's roster.
Yeah.
These are not the guys like from 2014 who were just not only cut from the Saints, but out of football within a year or that season. You have good players that this team has been able to identify late in the draft. So, there's some work to be done.
Okay, well, let me put you on the spot here. You are Payton / Loomis.
Mm-hmm.
You got some major decisions to make now.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, first and foremost, do you keep Bridgewater?
No. And it's not because I don't like Teddy Bridgewater, although I don't like him as a player. You can't afford to pay somebody like that. And here's how I would handle it. I mean, you know what you've got with Taysom Hill. You can work with Taysom Hill not to be an NFL starting caliber quarterback, but to be a reliable backup. You let, and the reason why I'm saying you let Bridgewater go too is because of financial reasons. You just don't have the room under the salary cap to pay him the kind of money you need to pay him to lock him up. Your future starting quarterback has to be on one of those cheap contracts. It just has to be. With Drew Brees counting towards $33 million, you can't afford to pay a guy like Bridgewater $12 to $15 million, which is probably about what he's going to need to stay around, because that just eats up too much money that you need to spend on other positions for this year to make that one final run, to address those holes. So I'm going to let Bridgewater go. I'm going to let him walk. If nobody shows any interest in him, which is entirely possible, if no one shows any interest in him, then I make an offer, after the draft if he hangs out that long. Okay. But I am more confident now that I can survive with a Taysom Hill as my number 2 guy if Brees misses, gets injured in a game or misses a game. I can survive with Taysom Hill for a game or so. I can't survive if Brees is out for the year, but I think I can survive with that. I feel more confident in Hill now than I did this time last year. He's not my future, though. I'm still looking at 2020 when I had my first-round draft pick. That's the year I'm targeting Drew Brees' replacement. That could also be the year that Drew retires. Who knows what quarterbacks get cut loose by that point. We just push off we kick the can down the road for one more year and ride with Drew Brees and see what happens and see how far we get. So I'm letting Bridgewater go. He's not so special that I can't afford not to have him. I have other options I can do and I need to spend that money elsewhere.
Okay, well, there was someone in one of our groups today that put forth an idea, and I wanted to get since I didn't have the chance to talk to you earlier off air about this, I wanted to get your take on this about possibly franchise tagging Bridgewater to try to benefit some draft picks out of the deal. Do you see that as being a possibility?
No, because that's too much. Again, that's too much money. Franchise tag. I looked it up. In fact, after I saw that post, the franchise tag for quarterbacks is around $25 million. They guesstimate. Again, that's $25 million you have to make room for under the salary cap for this year. So it just eats up so much of your money. Then you don't have any kind of guarantee that you're going to get any kind of trade value for him. Why a team that might be willing to sign him as a free agent may be less likely to sign him if he's got a franchise tag on him. It's I just don't see it. I really don't. If you want to try and recoup something for him, maybe a transition tag you can slap on him. That way you at least have a first refusal or something. I don't know. I think you just treat it like airline insurance. It costs you a 3rd-round pick, just as your backup protection for Brees. It gave you an entire season to look at his work ethic, his practice habits, and make your decision based on that. But to me, Drew Brees coming back for this year screws all that up. So you have to let him walk and go to a different plan. I
agree.
That's mine.
Me personally, that final week of the season, who was it? Tampa?
Carolina.
Mm-hmm. That game was the best chance that Teddy Bridgewater had at securing a job for next year, and he was way underwhelming. He came on the field.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't sharp. He looked like the moment was too big for him, to use a Sean Payton euphemism. And as you said, I don't see them investing the type of money that they're going to have to invest. You can't spend a quarter of your contract money availability on one position. And with Drew at 33, even a $5 million contract, that puts your salary cap at $38 million just for a quarterback position.
Yeah.
For someone that you may not ever see on the field unless Drew gets hurt or you lock up home field advantage early in the season. That's not very sound business. Not with other holes that need to be addressed. That's not very sound business for a team that lost the NFC Championship game in their own house. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things that it's it's not. You have other, if you're trying to make a run, okay, you're not defending Super Bowl champion. If we were defending Super Bowl champion, we'd have an entirely different conversation right now about what we need to do. You know, but you're trying to make one more run and complete what you didn't complete this past season. So the entire focus of this offseason is to fill the holes that were exposed in your roster, especially late in the year, that prevented you from getting over the hump. Blown call aside, prevented you. We had issues that kept us from getting over that hump. We were not playing our best football at the end of the year. And some of the positions were exposed. The lack of a tight end was huge. It was a problem during the season, but you could squeeze enough productivity out of Ben Watson to kind of cover it up. But in the playoffs, when we really needed him, he wasn't able to play, and you really had nothing behind him. The lack of a true threat opposite Michael Thomas was also huge. So those are two things you have to address. You're not going to win a championship throwing to the likes of a Keith Kirkwood, a Dan Arnold, a Tommy Lee Lewis. You need an upgrade. Traquan Smith did not take that step forward. He let the season kind of overwhelm him a little bit. He had that one great game against Philadelphia, but he wasn't consistent. Cameron Meredith wasn't recovered yet from that injury. So we just still don't know what we have with him. And then the timing just wasn't there for Ted Ginn. And I also think Ted Ginn's he's kind of hit that age wall where he is not the threat he used to be.
Ted Ginn's season this year was just basically a bookend. You had him at the beginning and you had him at the end, but in the middle, in the meat of the season, you had no number 2 receiver. Mm-hmm. You did not have that take the top off of the defense down the field threat, and that's something that in the home stretch of the season that the Saints missed terribly, because you give half a season to the best defensive coordinators in the world. You give them half a season to see and figure out a way to prevent Michael Thomas from being a factor in the game. Okay, awesome. Well, you're only going to be so effective throwing the ball to Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram out of the backfield. Mm-hmm. You have no number 2. You have no tight end. That's what choked most of the life out of the Saints season coming down the stretch.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, you really needed a consistent receiving threat. That's what you really need. Someone who can move the chains. You needed a Jimmy Graham. I know everybody's freaking out over that, but you needed a Jimmy Graham. You need someone who's going to move the chains, and you need someone who could take the top off of a defense. You just did. In 2009, you think about the year that Robert Meacham had in 2009. I think he had 9 touchdowns that year. That was huge and he's playing the slot. He's not playing the outside. He's the slot guy, but he had the speed to take the top off of a defense, along with Devery Henderson, who could take the top off the defense as well. And they were aware of Devery Henderson, but you couldn't double up Henderson and Meacham. Somebody was going to get open. So that was your speed threat. Then you had Colston underneath, who was your physical possession receiver. And then Lance Moore would jump in. And Lance Moore was the crafty route runner. It was a veteran offense that seemed to just really gel well in that passing game.
I still miss Lance Moore, man.
Well, and that's part of the reason why I think, Cole Beasley is somebody the Saints ought to look hard at, because I think he is that Lance Moore kind of receiver, that crafty route runner who just moves the chains for you. You know,
I don't think we should look hard at him. I think we should send him like an unmarked van to Dallas, Texas, and just bring him to New Orleans and say, look, you got a choice. You can be a Saint or you can be Gator bait. Up to you. Your choice completely. I don't want you to feel like we're twisting your arm, but, just choose wisely.
Yeah.
I did a radio interview last night, and they asked me about the upcoming draft, and I said, well, it seems to me that the Saints have like one pick in the first 2 days of the draft, in the first 3 rounds. The Saints have one pick, which signals to me that they're going to have to be really, really active in the free agent market. Now, that being said, you have to look at the positions of need, which for the Saints, all things considered, at least in my opinion, that comes down to 2 positions. That comes down to number 1 being tight end, number 2 being a number 2 receiver to complement Michael Thomas. And I mentioned Cole Beasley, and I swear the radio host, you could hear him shudder. He was like, oh, that would be great.
Well, I mean, you let a coach like Curtis Johnson coach a receiver like Cole Beasley, and you've got something. You can make him more than what they were doing with Dallas. You can make him help you on the outside and play the slot, not as a speed guy, but as that alternative guy who can move the chains. So when they are doubling Kamara and they are doubling Thomas, Cole Beasley's on one-on-one with a guy, and he's crafty enough to get that receipt, get open and give us that first down and move the chains. I can't tell you how important that is to this offense to consistently move the chains. Yes, the big plays are awesome. Yes, seeing these incredible plays where, Ingram, Kamara, or any of the Saints in the past, Pierre Thomas or Reggie Bush or Darren Sproles, where you take a little dump off and then take it to the house. Yeah, that's fun. But what killed teams when they played the Saints was it didn't matter if it was 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 15, the Saints were going to convert that first down. That kills teams. And the reason why that was able to happen was because you had a Lance Moore, a Jimmy Graham, a Marcus Colston. You had those kind of guys who could find a dead spot in the zone. You had the speed guys take it off the top, the safeties kick back. Yeah, the other guys run clear out patterns, and there's somebody sitting wide open who gets the yardage it takes to get that first down. That's what you have to have in this offense. And we've been missing that for a long, long time. We've been missing it, I'd say, since the 2013 season. Even though Graham was there in 2014, he wasn't nearly as effective as he was in 2013. And that was the last time I can remember the offense being that kind of machine.
Yeah. The last year Graham was in New Orleans was like a bad memory on his career, because, and I don't mean that negatively towards Graham, because I mean, as you so eloquently put it before, all he did was catch touchdown passes. But that year, his productivity was turned inconsistent by the fact that he stayed hurt so much. The plantar fascia injury that he had, and
you lost Sproles. And the thing about Graham, and this is the other aspect of him that gets overlooked or ignored. What made Graham effective in this offense was the threat of Darren Sproles. Now, you got that with Alvin Kamara, but you need to have that counterbalance, because you've got Graham who can attack you at the seams and make plays against your linebackers and safeties. But at the same time, if you double him and try and take him out, Darren Sproles is going to kill you. Sproles was going to kill you. And Pierre Thomas, too. Yeah. Well, in 2014, we lost. Pierre Thomas had gotten old. We had, he was not the player he used to be. and we traded Sproles away. So we were relying almost exclusively on Graham, and you just did not get that. Oh, and the other thing was Marcus Colston got old.
And stayed hurt, too.
Yeah, but I mean, I hate to say this, but the telltale sign was in that Atlanta game, an opening possession where he, an open possession, in overtime when he threw the helmet down and slammed it down because he dropped that pass, which is a turnover. I think it was a turnover. I'm trying to remember how that game went out. But, I mean, that was the end of Marcus Colston, the threat that he was coming over the middle and catching those passes where he's going to get creamed, but he still comes down with it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. We've covered that. Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the realistic possibility? And I'm not going to allow. Let me kind of rephrase this. I'm not going to allow you the cop out answer of it depends on how the season ends. So that's not an alternative. That's not an option here. Do you see us extending Brees yet again?
No, I don't. He's 40, and I don't think he wants to play longer. I mean, he says he wants to play to 45. He has said that, but his kids are getting to be the age. They're in a fun age right now, and I know exactly what he's going through because that was a lot of fun for me as a parent. His kids are in that age from 5 to 10, that range right now where they are incredibly fun. He's coaching his kids in flag football. You've seen the videos of him when he comes home and he's throwing the footballs to the kids on the sofa and stuff like that. He wants to spend all that time with them. He has the ability to spend all that time with them. He wants to be Drew Brees, the dad now, not Drew Brees, the football player. So I think that's why he's not going to want to play much longer. I think he wants to go out as a champion. I think he wants to go out owning almost all the records in football, which I think he will surpass Peyton Manning this coming year. But those are the things that he wants to do professionally in his career. But personally, he's ready to be Drew Brees, the dad. And that's just the feeling I get watching him right now.
A lot of people kind of shudder at the analogy that I make, but I look at Drew Brees now in much the same way that I looked at Michael Jordan towards the end of his career. You own every record that there is in the record book, basically. You've done everything that there is to do in your career. What's the motivation? You're now a dad. You're now a businessman. Your name is on several businesses.
Mm-hmm.
What's left for you to prove in the National Football League? And you and I both are well beyond 40.
Mm-hmm.
That alarm clock gets tough. Getting up ain't what it used to be once you pass the big 4-0. What possible motivation outside? Well, I excluded that possibility in framing the question, but obviously the most important thing, or the most important motivation anyway, for Drew Brees has to be that he wants to win another championship with his team. But suppose that happens, what possible motivation could there be for him to subject himself to possible injury and that to keep doing this? You're great. It's not like you're gonna play another year and be that much greater and be remembered that much more than what you are right now. The only thing that I hope, and this is a very personal and sincere hope for me. The only thing that I really, really, really would not like to see is for Drew Brees and the prima donna Punk to retire at the same time in the same calendar year. And for those who are not initiated with our show, the prima donna Punk is Tom Brady. And that was the polite thing that I choose to call him. If they retire at the same time, it's just going to be his entire career is going to be summed up in Canton the same way that it was acknowledged during his playing career. He's going to wind up being eligible and elected to the Hall of Fame at the same time as Tom Brady. And everything that Brees ever did, everything that he ever accomplished, every record that he ever set is going to be overshadowed by the media's golden boy. And I don't think that that's right. I don't think that that's fair for what Brees has done in his career. I think that he should be allowed to have that spotlight. Finally.
Well, I'm disappointed that that Brady did not announce retirement already. I want Brady to retire just because I'm sick of hearing about him. But I mean, I want Brady to retire because I don't want him to get the records. Aaron Rodgers, I can tolerate getting the records. Some of the other guys that are way down the list, I can tolerate them getting some of the records, but not, even Matt Ryan, but not Tom Brady. I don't want him. I want Brees to get to the point where some of those records are like, that's just untouchable. One of the things I'm concerned about is Bill Belichick is closing in on Don Shula's record for most wins. That concerns me. It's not because I don't like Belichick or don't respect Belichick. I do. But that's just one of those records I always wanted to be untouchable.
Yeah.
And I was looking it up to see how close they were. God dang it. I hate these things now. They put the stuff on there. I just want to see how close he was to Shula's record.
Well, I mean, he's already got the record for Super Bowl appearances as far as coaching goes.
Belichick has, the number is 347. Mm-hmm. Belichick has this can't be right. 261 wins? Felt like he has more than that.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, 261 according to this. I thought he had more wins than that. Oh, well. Let's see. That could be his. Let me look at another thing. That doesn't look right.
They just tied. You and I talked about this on one of our last couple of shows.
That's more like 292 wins. He's got 292 wins.
So he's looking at about 3 more seasons.
Yes, he passed Tom Landry last year. So he's got 292, and he's got a better winning percentage than Hallis and Shula. Hallis has 324. Shula has 347. Shula has a 6.665 winning percentage. Hallis is 0.671, and Belichick is 0.685, which is unbelievable. But, yeah, he's at 292. So that other thing I must have been looking at did not count playoff games. That's the only way he could be at 261. But yeah, career wins. Yeah, so he's very close. He could pass him, like you said, in about 3 seasons.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I'm off to my second or third, got a lost track job here shortly. And on that note, invite everybody that's in the area. If you want the best barbecue around, Two Dudes Brew and Q, my new gig, Kevo, Meredith, and Chris, they'll hook you up. It's an awesome place, and it's run by 2 of the most stand-up guys that I could possibly recommend. And I love them to death, and I'm now part of the family, and can't tell you how much that means to me. So once again, I want to thank Fan First Productions for sponsoring us. We want to invite you guys to subscribe to our show on iTunes and on YouTube. And if nobody's told you today that you're awesome, you're with us. So by very definition, you are awesome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Peace and love. Alan, I'm throwing it to you, brother.
I like this new happy, optimistic Sean that we've got right now. I mean, this is something, getting a band, working a new job. You're doing really, you really got it right now. That's really great.
In an hour, I'm going to be in the broom closet wishing I was dead, dude.
Thank you guys for joining us tonight. And, we'll talk some more about the offseason. The NFL league year, I believe, starts the first week of March. I'm not sure.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's as far as free agency and stuff is concerned. That's when we'll start seeing everybody getting tagged. We've already seen a couple of moves get made. The Saints made some moves. We'll see. We'll talk some about how to generate some salary cap space, because that's the most important thing of all. And that's the things that we need to do to make the moves to get us to the next level. We'll talk about that next week. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of the week, everybody.